Dear listeners of Heart and Soul Gospel Ministry, I am Joseph, the host of Wake Up Call. The Baptist Press, a research center affiliated with Gallup in the U.S., recently released the results of a survey on Americans' religious beliefs. According to the survey, the percentage of American adults identifying themselves as Christians has reached its lowest point since Gallup began tracking the data in the 1940s. In 2023, 68% of American adults identified themselves as Christians. Some of you might say 68% of American adults as Christians does not sound so bad. However, consider back in 2003, just 20 years ago, that number was 83%. The percentage has dropped from 83% to 68% in just 2 decades. That is a lot. It is important to note that the term Christian in this survey includes not only the Protestants and Catholics, but also other Christian-affiliated groups, including fringe sects. Even individuals who do not attend church but still consider themselves as Christians were included in this count. What's even more striking is that when this survey was conducted in 1956, a staggering 96% of Americans identified themselves as Christians. According to the Baptist Press report, the decline in the number of people who identify themselves as Christians in the U.S. has been particularly significant over the past decade. In 2012, 58% of the respondents said that faith was a very important part of their lives, but by 2023, that number had dropped to 45%. This indicates not only a decline in the number of people who identify themselves as being religious, but also a decrease in those who consider faith a central part of their lives. So what would the Bible say about these types of trends? In the Bible, we see that there are more examples of people whose faith weakened over time than those whose faith grew stronger. The number of people who truly served as role models of faith is relatively small. From Adam at the beginning of creation to the nation of Israel, from King Solomon and the many kings that followed him to the churches established through Jesus Christ in the New Testament. History is filled with stories of people who once had faith but later fell away. That is why Jesus repeatedly emphasized the importance of staying vigilant and holding on to our faith until the end. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect, says Matthew 24:42-44. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake, but the one who endures to the end will be saved, says Matthew 10:22. Jesus said in Revelation 2:25-26, "Only hold fast what you have until I come. The one who conquers and who keeps my works until the end, to him I will give him authority over the nations." It seems that our faith should deepen and mature over time. In most aspects of life, the more we practice something over the years, the more skilled and proficient we become. Therefore, logically speaking, our faith should also grow stronger and more mature as our spiritual journey progresses. However, strangely enough, faith often weakens rather than strengthens as time goes on. Why does this happen? It is likely because as faith grows to a certain point, people begin to rely less on trusting the Lord and more on trusting themselves. This leads them to a place of pride. The Bible is aware of this tendency and warns us in advance. It tells us to stay alert and hold firmly to our faith until the end. Jesus warns us in Matthew 24:24, "For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect." If we understand through Jesus teachings that our faith can become weaker over time, then we must be vigilant and take precautions to ensure that the warnings in Scripture do not come to pass in our own lives. A wise and discerning person would take these warnings to heart and prepare accordingly. Have you ever seen a single word spoken by God or Jesus that has not come to pass? Every word spoken by God and Jesus has been fulfilled and will continue to be fulfilled. Therefore, we must not take this lightly. We must remember that the world will try to shake our faith and draw us away from the truth, and we must be prepared for these attacks. The decline in faith is already evident in surveys and studies. The decreasing number of people who identify themselves as Christians is proof that more and more individuals are letting go of their faith. The question of whether their faith was genuine or not is not the matter here. What is important is that those who once considered themselves believers are now abandoning their faith. Dear listeners of Heart and Soul Gospel Ministry, the Bible reveals the future to us so that we may stand firm in our faith as we move forward. God gives us these warnings so that we will not fall away from salvation. Therefore, let us humbly receive the warnings expressed in the Scripture, examine our faith, remain watchful and sober-minded, and prepare ourselves with a faith that endures to the end. May we not take lightly the warning Jesus gives us in Mark 13:28-37. From the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also, when you see these things taking place, you know that he is near, at the very gates. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But concerning that day or that hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on guard, keep awake, for you do not know when the time will come. It is like a man going on a journey, when he leaves home and puts his servants in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to stay awake. Therefore stay awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening or at midnight, or when the rooster crows or in the morning, lest he come suddenly and find you asleep. And what I say to you, I say to all, stay awake. May his words take root deep within our souls, awaken us from spiritual slumber, and lead us toward an unshakable faith. This concludes today's message. I look forward to being with you again next week. Goodbye.